Hi, I'm Teresa Arsenault of TNT Artspirations. I'm the author of Bee Singer Queen, which is the first novel in my fantasy series, Tales of Ellmoria. Welcome to my workshop, Build Your Book. I've been writing and learning how to write for most of my life. It's a process I don't think ever ends, but I've picked up a few things. I hope I can pass something useful along to you. You're most likely here because you've at least thought about writing a book. You've either started and got stuck, or perhaps you don't know where to start. My goal in this course is to simplify the process so you'll know how to start and how not to get stuck. So come along and let me help you build your book. Why outline? One big reason for me is I don't have to remember every single little detail. Many writers end up lost after writing the first few chapters of a book. They start off with an idea and dive in with gusto. Then they run out of steam and set their manuscript aside. Many would-be books lie abandoned in dresser drawers or in computer files, only partially written. Jotting down ideas and writing cursory scenes when the inspiration strikes is a great practice. You need to act when everything is fresh in your mind, but inspiration will almost certainly fizzle out eventually. Almost all successful writers outline. The more detailed your novel is, the more extensive your plan will need to be. An outline can be as simple as one page written in point form, or it can be as elaborate as J.R.R. Tolkien's works, with maps, settings, several races of people, architectural drawings, and even a made-up language. If you hate the idea of carving out time to write an outline, think of the hours you'll save when you don't have to stop to figure out what direction to take next, or to search for the key thing your character said in Chapter 2 while you're in the middle of writing Chapter 20. An outline will save you time in the long run. Writing a book without an outline is like trying to build a house without a set of blueprints. A builder doesn't expect to remember every detail of his project, and a writer shouldn't expect to remember every detail of her book. Your outline will help you get it right. Besides, your outline will actually spark new ideas for your novel, but we'll talk about that later. Easy as ABCD. Building a novel, or any book, is like building a house. You need to understand the basic parts and how to put them together. I've simplified these into 4 headings, represented by the first 4 letters of the alphabet. Alpha, the foundation of your book, also called theme. Building, the parts that give shape to your story, like the framing of a house. Conflict, scenes that drive changes in your plot and characters. Decorative, scenes that give your reader relief from the tension in the story. I chose the word decorative just to use the letter D, but I prefer to call these scenes tea breaks. Alpha brick, theme. Theme is to your story what foundation is to a house. We build our story upon theme. Theme can and should be summed up in one sentence, but it does require careful thought. Theme is the heartbeat of your story, not a tacked-on message. It is the driving force behind the actions of your characters, whether they are acting for it or against it. It normally reflects a belief that you hold true and will come through, whether you've been intentional about it or not. Theme is not a tacked-on message. Some of the first Christian novels were whatever the author wanted to write about, with a salvation message tacked on at the end. A tacked-on message is not a theme. Theme is an underlying belief. If being a Christian is the theme of my life, it will affect everything I say and do. If I believe that God is good, it will affect my decisions and my outlook on life. Theme has the same effect in your story. It doesn't have to be the belief of the main character, but her journey should illustrate it. Think about your story in terms of what you care about or what you believe. What value, statement, or belief does or could your story illustrate? If you are a Christian, ask God what He wants to say through your story. Quickly jot down ideas as they occur to you. Don't overthink it. Then narrow it down to 3. Leave your notes for at least a day. As other ideas occur to you, jot them down too. Take your time. This is your foundation, and you want it to be strong. Once you've chosen a theme, write it out in one sentence or phrase. Include a Bible verse if one suits. Think of the book, or if you've seen it in the movie, it's called The Shack. The theme is that God is loving, good, and just, even when horrible injustices happen. The protagonist believes the opposite, and no one can blame him. In fact, we find ourselves journeying with him, hoping that he can be proven wrong, and we can lay our own doubts aside. We care deeply about his struggle because it reflects our own. Meditate on your theme. As you write your story, keep it in the back of your mind to guide you. It will likely suggest plot ideas that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. Theme in nonfiction. Theme is integral to any book. If you're writing a nonfiction book, your theme will be obvious, often stated in the title. A couple of Matt Tommey's books come to mind: Unlocking the Heart of the Artist and The Thriving Christian Artist. You can tell what the themes are by reading the titles, as well as the specific audience Matt is hoping to reach. Imagine you want to write a book on crafting. What kind of crafting? Budget? High-end? Environmentally friendly? And who do you want to reach? Homemakers? Businesswomen? Artists? A book which focuses on a target audience, even a niche audience, will have a greater appeal than one which attempts to appeal to everyone. Here are title suggestions for a book on crafting, with specific focuses for specific audiences. After each title, I've included the theme it suggests. Me Time Creativity. This suggests a theme of self-care. DIY Gifts They'll Love. This is for the budget-conscious person. Your Healing Art Journey. Someone who's in recovery of some kind, grieving, or just self-care. Crafts That Sell. This would appeal to entrepreneurs. The reader can identify the theme right away by the titles. A busy mother or a working artist might gravitate to Me Time Creativity. DIY Gifts They'll Love could capture the attention of mothers, grandmothers, or even college students. A creative person who is grieving a loss or recovering from an illness might be drawn to your healing art journey. Entrepreneurs might pick up Crafts That Sell. There will be some crossover appeal in these books for anyone who likes to craft, but the reader will choose the title that most fits her specific needs. Writing your nonfiction book with a theme in mind will help you focus on the needs of your specific reader. For Crafts That Sell, you might include tips on selling at craft fairs or online. DIY Gifts They'll Love could have a section focused on gifts for specific holidays. Scriptures could be included with each project or exercise in your healing art journey. Identifying your theme and including it in your title will help you to write a better book that will get noticed. Theme in your biography or history will make your writing more purposeful and engaging. In fact, you can apply all the elements of good novel writing to your book to make it a more enjoyable experience for your readers. Building brick number 1, plot. Now that you have your alpha block, your theme, you need to start building the frame of your novel. The two main building blocks of any novel are plot and characters. Theme motivates your story. Plot is the machine that drives it. The gears of the machine are obstacles that your character must overcome. Character-driven novels still need plot. A secondary plot that illustrates the theme comes off as less preachy than a theme directly related to your main plot. This will be illustrated in the sample story that follows. In our sample story, the theme is marriage. First, we have our main character. His main objective, plot number 1, is to see the Rocky Mountains. He also wants to revitalize his marriage, plot number 2. As obstacles come against them reaching their destination, plot number 1, the story moves forward. Plot number 2, their marriage relationship, will be affected by the way our characters respond to the obstacles in plot number 1. Don't worry if this sounds confusing. It will all become clear soon. Plot in nonfiction. Topical books will not have plots. They will have subjects which build upon the book's theme. A topical book is just a book written about a specific subject. There are other meanings to the word, but this is what I mean when I use the term topical throughout this workshop. A biography or history can be written like a character-driven or plot-driven novel. Theme will help you focus on why you tell your story. Plot can bring life to how you tell it. Let's take the topic of immigration to Canada after World War II. In a biography, you could show how Grandma's faith helped her overcome the struggles as a young bride in a new country. The plot would be immigration to Canada. The theme could be overcoming faith. This story would be mainly character-driven, with Grandma as the protagonist. A history on the topic could be called Brides of the Queen Mary. That was the name of the ship that brought my Scottish mum to Canada in 1945. The plot could focus on the struggles of migrating so many British wives and children of Canadian soldiers to Canada. The theme could be love in a time of war. While there would certainly be many stories of human interest, this would be mainly plot-driven. Building brick number 2, characters. Your main characters don't need elaborate backstories, but they should be memorable. Imagine a curved smoking pipe, a green plaid cape and matching cap. most of you will think of the fictional detective Sherlock Holmes. You can have one main character, protagonist, or two, but not usually more than that. Your reader should have time to become well acquainted with your first main character before you move on to another, especially if you're writing a character-driven novel. Your story might have an antagonist, or circumstances could represent one. The role of the antagonist is to frustrate the goals of the main character. You'll have at least one supporting character and any number of minor characters. In our sample story, the husband is the protagonist and the wife is the supporting character. The more characters your story has, the more important it is to create and organize character profiles. A character profile template is included in the PDF that comes with this course. You can print it out for as many characters as you have in your novel. Other building bricks. Setting. Most modern-day readers won't tolerate long descriptive scenes, but you can't have your characters floating against a green screen. You will need at least one setting. If your hero sets out on a quest, you will need several. Expansive descriptions of your setting aren't necessary or desirable, but developing it in your own imagination is important. Then you can pull little elements of it into your scenes. I've included the template for the settings in the PDF that comes with this course. Inciting incident. An inciting incident is the thing that motivates your character into action. It's basically the thing that happens which sets your story in motion. Supporting characters. Your supporting characters are an important part of your story. Where would Sherlock be without Watson, or Frodo without Sam? Any character that has a major influence on your main character's objective is a supporting character. A supporting character can be a spouse, best friend, parent, teacher, or even an enemy. An enemy is called an antagonist because he is in direct opposition to your character and his main goal. That gives him a special position in your story. But he is a supporting character, in my opinion, in that he supports the movement of the story. Minor characters. There are different levels of minor characters. A key minor character has some influence on your main character, while other minor characters will be more like setting. In an office, the boss, the most popular person, or the bully could be key minor characters if they directly influence your character in some way. The guys in the mailroom or the girls in the finance office would be simple minor characters. Key minor characters should have simple character profiles, so you can recall their details when writing about them in subsequent scenes. Other minor characters might not need a written profile, especially if they're only mentioned once or as a group. Subplots. Subplots make a story more interesting. Subplots are often generated because of supporting characters. A subplot usually develops alongside the main plot. In the real-life version of Disney's Aladdin with Will Smith, there are two main plots. Plot number 1 is Aladdin's desire to marry Princess Jasmine. Plot number 2 is whether Aladdin will keep his promise to set the genie free. The subplot is the budding romance between the genie and Princess Jasmine's maid. Subplots are often about supporting characters and what they want out of the story. In this case, the decision of the main character, Aladdin, will affect the outcome for the supporting character, the genie. Antagonist. There's nothing like a good villain to make a story interesting. We love to hate them, and we love to see them lose. The role of an antagonist is to frustrate the goals of the protagonist. Let's build foundation and frame. Get out your building bricks and let's build the foundation and frame of our story. Start with your theme. Then add your main plot and protagonist. Next comes your inciting incident. Let's not forget your supporting character and subplot. Finally, add your setting and minor characters. Don't worry about details like names at this point. We just want to get the frame up on our nice solid foundation of theme. Conflict and decorative scenes. You've established your theme. You've framed in your story house with characters, plots, inciting incident, and setting. Our next building block is conflict. Without conflict, there is no story. If plot is the machine of story, conflict is the fuel that charges up that machine. Conflict gives your story motion. A conflict scene makes an engaging beginning, which would likely be your inciting incident. Your conflict scenes should grow in length and intensity as your story builds. Constant action can be stressful, even for armchair heroes. Pleasant scenes will help your reader relax. They'll also give her opportunities to become familiar with your characters and your world. I like to call these tea break scenes. Tea break scenes should decrease in length and quantity as the story progresses. Most of your story will consist of conflict and tea break scenes. Use your intuition to balance scenes of high tension with scenes where your characters and your readers can relax. Building scenes. Some scenes are neither conflict nor decorative. I call these building scenes. Building scenes build connection with the characters or the plot. Imagine your character has suffered a great loss. She struggles through the day-to-day sorrow. There is no sense of tension as with a conflict scene, but it's not lighthearted like a tea break scene. This is a character building scene because it builds connection between your reader and your character. It also changes or builds the character of the protagonist. Now imagine your character is deciding whether to accept a marriage proposal to the boy next door or a scholarship to a prestigious university in another country. There is some tension in this scene, but not what I would call conflict. If she were having an argument with her boyfriend, that would be a conflict scene for sure. Again, since this is neither conflict nor tea break, I'm calling it a building scene. It's building connection between your reader and your character, but this scene also builds the plot and your reader's connection with the plot as she begins to form her own opinion of what the protagonist should do. Openings for fiction and non-fiction books. Some of these are chapters in your book, others are merely scenes. First, we'll talk about openings in fiction. Prologue. A prologue should grab your reader's attention and quickly move her into the story. It often reveals background history that wouldn't present well anywhere else. It should be shorter than your typical chapters. It comes before chapter 1 of your novel. Opening. Whether you choose to open your novel with a prologue or chapter 1, your opening scene should grab the reader's attention. Start with some kind of action or mystery, usually the inciting incident. Introduction. Once you've pulled your reader into your story with your opening scene, she should be ready to learn a little more about your main character. Don't draw this out too long, or it could be boring. Take note that the opening and introduction are scenes in your novel, not chapters. Next, we'll talk about openings in a nonfiction book. Forward. This is at the beginning of a nonfiction book, right after the acknowledgments. It's usually written by someone other than the author. Most often, it's written by someone who is a known authority on the topic of the book. Preface, also called an introduction. This is normally written by the author. It's usually where he explains how he came to write his book. Most often, it's seen in nonfiction books. In the case of a novel series, I have seen authors give a short preface to catch the readers up on what has happened in previous books in the series. Opening. This should grab the reader's attention just like a novel. A testimonial is a good place to start. This can be a chapter or a short scene at the beginning of the first chapter. Since I mentioned acknowledgments, it's only fair I give a short description. This is seen at the beginning of a book, fiction or nonfiction, and is where the author thanks people who have helped with or influenced the writing of the book. Endings. We talked about openings. Now let's talk about endings in your novel. Other than the epilogue, these are scenes in your book, not chapters. Climax. The climax scene is the height of tension in your story. It should come just before the denouement. There should have been a gradual build-up towards it. You can do that by having more intense conflict scenes and fewer, shorter tea break scenes as you build towards it. You can have other scenes of high tension before this, but the stakes should seem impossible by this point. Denouement. This is where you tie up your loose ends and bring out your desired resolution. A denouement is like a roof on a house. You can have a leaky roof or one that is watertight. A watertight denouement wraps up all the loose plot points and gives your reader a feeling of satisfaction. You don't want to leave all of your reader's questions to the end, but you do want to resolve any remaining questions in your wrap-up. If there are more books to follow, you could leave something unanswered or hint at a new mystery to be solved. But please, never end on a cliffhanger. Your reader has invested hours of her time into reading your book. She deserves a satisfying ending. Epilogue. An epilogue is like an afterthought. It's a great place to introduce the next book in your series, or just to give your readers a glimpse into the happily ever after of your characters. It comes after the final chapter of your novel, and it should be short. Building your outline. Thinking of our sample story, let's build an outline using boxes and arrows. If you do this on a computer, you can move the boxes and arrows around until you get an arrangement you like. If you like crafting, you can write your scene descriptions on strips of paper and glue them to a larger sheet once you find your groove. You can also do this in point form, but this method allows a bit more freedom. Inciting incident. The wife is angry about the husband's purchase of a motorhome, leading to a tea break where the wife relents and they begin their trip. There are small conflicts building to the larger conflict. The mishap, where the husband forgets about the emergency brake and the motorhome drifts into an ice cream truck. There's a big blow up. You can add the smaller conflicts in later or create them as you write, whichever suits your style. This comes to a tea break. They work out a major issue in their marriage. Next, there's a major conflict. They're hijacked. Eventually, they can escape, but there will be some scenes between the hijacking and the escape. You can insert these later or create them spontaneously as you write your book. The robbers left a stash in the motorhome. They start chasing. Scenes of action and narrow escapes will follow. More scenes are suggested here. Leave them off for now. Climax. The couple is captured and backed down a dock at gunpoint. There seems no way out. Suddenly, they look up and see the big old motorhome drifting towards them. They jump out of the way just in time. The motorhome plows into the robbers, plunging them into the water. There's a big relief and a big laugh. Which brings us to the denouement. The police arrest the robbers and take them away. The wife is now grateful for her husband's forgetfulness. There are words of love and affirmation. The end. Your outline sparks creativity. As you build your outline, many questions will come to your mind. Those questions will help you develop new scenes. The theme of marriage dictated that our sample story would be in the romance genre. I decided to make it a romantic comedy. Knowing what genre your book fits into will help shape the decisions you make in your outline. This outline developed somewhat organically, with one idea sparking another, usually by the questions that each scene raised. First, I pondered how the couple could be rescued, and how to do it in a humorous way. A huge RV plowing into the bad guys was classically funny. Like a good joke, I knew a scene like that would have more comedic impact with a setup. That led me to insert the idea of the husband forgetting about the emergency brake. I asked myself what the motorhome should drift into, keeping in mind that it should be as funny as possible. Plowing into a police car was too cliché, but I thought a collision with ice cream splattered everywhere would be a lot of fun. As I jotted down these scene ideas, it occurred to me that the husband's forgetfulness might have caused issues in the marriage. This fact could cause more ideas for humor as well as conflict in the story. Since this is my first stab at my outline, I just make a note of this idea. I'll either come up with some scene ideas in the outline stage or let them develop as I write my story. In the end, the husband's forgetfulness saves their lives, which is both funny and endearing. Your outline can be very simple or quite complex. It all depends on your writing style and your personality. Find out what works for you. An outline is a tool to guide you, not to control you. Building your topical nonfiction book. I write mainly fiction. My advice about writing nonfiction comes from a reader's viewpoint. One problem I've found with reading topical literature is information overload. But I've also found works by clever authors who know how to prevent that from happening to their readers. Headings. Breaking up your information into bite-sized pieces under headings makes it easier for the average reader to digest. Even the Bible does this. Clever author. Pictures or diagrams can give the brain a welcome rest. They can also illustrate your points in a way that words just can't. Ever heard the statement, "A picture paints 1,000 words"? Testimonies or stories. These can be from your own life or from others. You may need permission if the stories are from someone other than yourself who is not deceased. Quizzes. These can be inserted at the end of a chapter or section. Readers get to review what they've learned. This also makes your book desirable for groups who are looking to do a book study. Here are some specialty pages you might need or like for your topical book. These are located at the back of your book. Appendage, a page that offers other sources of information on the same subject. Bibliography, References to marked text in your book of quotes or information referenced from another source. These are called annotations. You can also list references you've used in a general way in your bibliography without annotations. Index. This gives the location of specific information in your book, such as the index in a cookbook. This is always alphabetical. An index can also be used in a novel, particularly a novel series, where there is a vast amount of information with many characters and settings. The author may include phonetic spelling for names that are unfamiliar, and maps can be included too. Mortar between the bricks. In real life, we don't always get resolutions to our conflicts or answers to our questions. It's a frustration we learn to live with, or at least we try. We don't want to leave our reader feeling frustrated. By the end of our story, we want her to feel satisfied and glad that she gave our book her time. As we took our first stab at an outline of our sample story, many questions were raised. That is a good thing. Here are a few questions that came to my mind. Why is the marriage in jeopardy? Why is the wife angry about the purchase of the motorhome? How do they escape from the robbers? And what is in the robbers' stash? How do the robbers catch the couple? Make 2 columns on a sheet of paper or use the worksheet in the PDF that comes with this course. In the left column, write down any questions that were raised from the initial outline of your book. Write possible solutions in the column on the right. You don't need to have answers for each one right away. Some of these you'll resolve as you move through your story. Point of view, POV. You have all the main building blocks for your book. You've chosen a theme to be your guiding light. You've cleverly devised plots and subplots. You've invented your cast of characters and chosen or created your setting. You know how to grab your reader's attention and how to balance your conflict scenes with tea breaks. You have a good idea of how to build towards your story's climax and how to give your reader the satisfying ending she deserves. Now, I'd like to tell you about a mysterious element called point of view, POV. If you get it right, it will make a huge difference in how your readers engage with your story. POV is the human limitation you live with every day of your life. It's the green thing stuck between your teeth that you didn't see until you caught your reflection in the staff washroom mirror. It's the other side of the conversation your husband had on his cell phone. It's what your character cannot see, hear, or experience as much as what she can. You need to put yourself in the skin of your character and limit your writing to only what she can see, hear, or experience. You should also be loyal to that character's POV. Jumping from one character to another will confuse your reader. You can use different POVs within your story, but it's best not to change within the same chapter and never within the same scene. It's also best to limit POV characters to 1 or 2 throughout your novel. Wise use of POV pulls your reader into your story. She might still think about your POV character long after completing your book. Respect your reader. Imagine paying in advance for a meal, and when the beautiful silver dome is lifted, you see something like this. The server says there are no refunds, and your meal cannot be exchanged. This is how a reader feels when she pays for an unedited book. Even if you are excellent at spelling and grammar, you will make mistakes. Auto spelling and grammar checkers are helpful, but they're not enough. Inconsistency, forgetting details, or messing up technicalities with misinformation. There are so many possibilities for getting it wrong. Once you've self-edited as much as you're able, there's nothing more valuable than a fresh pair of human eyes. Write to please yourself, but keep your readers in mind. If you decide to publish, do a thorough edit, and then have someone else with excellent English skills check it over for errors in grammar, spelling, and sentence structure. You can use free software like Grammarly to help you as well. You don't have to be an English major these days to write a book, but please respect your readers and clean up your work before you expect them to move in and live there for a few hours, days, or even weeks. Thank you so much for choosing this workshop. I know your time is valuable, and I appreciate you spending it with me. Email me at contact@tntartspirations.com with your questions or comments on this course, and tell me if you'd like to see others like it. Please check out our website at www.tntartspirations.com and be sure to get the PDF that comes with this workshop. Thanks again, and I hope you enjoy building your book.